Hey everybody, Mercer here. This little bonus episode is a sequel of sorts to a similar episode that Ryan Brady did earlier this year. And just as he sought my approval for that episode, I've gotten his approval to do this. This is a personal project. It's not Macca related, so if you're not interested, feel free to bail anytime. But if you are interested, stick around. I'd like to tell you a little bit about my new concept album called More to Come.
And so much more to go.
That's a little excerpt from the title track. As I said, this is a concept album, and the subject is the late, great Johnny Carson. That is, it uses Johnny Carson as kind of a focal point for an exploration of what the media landscape was like during the final years of Johnny Carson's career, from the time he moved the show from New York to Burbank in 1972, through his retirement, and a few years after that into the mid-90s. The way that we relate to media, both publicly and in private, has changed a great deal since that time. This album is an elegy of sorts for a whole way of life that's gone. It doesn't claim that it was a better way of life, it just marks the occasion of its passing. The album contains both harsh criticisms of the dominance of the big three television networks at that time, and a certain sadness that some of the national unity we had at that time is gone. Johnny Carson seems an apt figure for exploring this idea, but it could just as well have been Walter Cronkite or some other major figure. It just so happens that I relate personally to Johnny Carson.
Stop, wait, don't let the curtain fall yet. Don't let the credits roll yet. Don't count the tickets sold yet. The brass will soon forget. The press will soon report your cancellation. Learn the part, Jack, and you better sing. You better dance till you can bring them to their feet with a glance. You better dazzle and entrance. You shiny property. You should be property.
That's a little excerpt from track 3, which is called The Property. The album starts with a little trio of songs called The Network, The Studio, and The Property. And the idea is to sort of set the scene, first with a song about the big three, then with a song about the sausage making of shows in the studio, and then with a third song that focuses in on the host and some of the downsides of being the property of the big three. Johnny Carson's all-time favorite song was Here's That Rainy Day. You can see a brief excerpt of him playing guitar and singing it, actually, on the American Experience documentary about him. I've written a very different song called Where's That Rainy Day? It's the closest thing on the album to an actual pastiche. You see, the album is heavily influenced by sunshine pop and baroque pop, which were a couple of subgenres that flourished at the end of the 60s and the beginning of the 70s. Most people who have heard the album say they can barely recognize the sunshine pop in it, but this track seems to me to be straight up pastiche of sunshine pop, heavily influenced by things like Yellow Balloon, for example, and of course, mid-60s Beach Boys. However, it twists the idea of sunshine pop quite a bit because it's about the mean-spirited side of late-night fodder. The first verse of the song is about the LA freeway shootings in the 1980s that Carson made endless jokes about. The second half of the song is even darker, dealing with the infamous San Diego tank incident. That last one was actually after Carson's time, but it still applies. Here's a little excerpt of that song.
And I'm rolling toward the freeway, and I'm rolling slow and mean. I'm a rolling one-man DJ as the master of this green machine. Under warm suburban sunbeams, there's a war game on display. The swarms of your first news teams. What can I say?
Side 2 begins with a song called You Are Not Rehired. It's a grim title, but it deals with the sorry fates of many of Johnny Carson's competitors, and it's a bit of foreshadowing for the somewhat less brutal way in which Carson will be pushed out of the industry later. Here's an excerpt from the middle section of that song, featuring some excellent a cappella work by my friend Ben Hurtman.
To colonize the night till something's always on, till nothing else feels right. And when you dream, you build an
And finally, here's an excerpt from the next to last song on the album. It's a song that deals with Johnny Carson's retirement, called Stargaze. The title has to do with, among other things, the fact that Johnny Carson was an avid amateur astronomer.
tell of you, tell of you, stellar viewership gaze, inward gaze, downward glance, backward at play. Turn toward the warmth of the sun and the cold light of stargaze, visions of nightscapes fade into dewdrops.
So there you go. I hope that gives you a sense of things, and I hope a few of you will be inspired to go and check it out. Before I wrap up, I'd like to thank some of the people who helped me with the album. The musicians Dave Bullard, Brady Kennedy, and Chris Fisher Lockhead, and a big, big thanks to Ben Hurtman, who was there for me every step of the way on this project. If you download the album on Bandcamp, it comes with a PDF booklet that includes the lyrics and the credits so you can see how some of these people contributed. Finally, a big, big thanks as always to my podcasting partner in crime, Ryan Brady. Thanks, everybody.